Thank you all for being here. And for those of you who are watching with us, I want to introduce you to our good friends, Kevin and Ingrid Johnson. And we just want to have a conversation tonight. And what I really want to do is introduce some of my friends to some of my other friends and using some of the technology that's available to us these days. And Kevin himself has been a big encouragement to me to try to do those things. And so to start, I just want to talk about how we met, which to me is an interesting thing. How sometimes God throws surprises in your life, right? So I guess it was what, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, we're at that age where time rolls up on you, but
Yeah, maybe a couple.
it's been at least 2
Few
years.
summers back, few summers, a few moons.
Yeah,
It wasn't.
it's been a minute. We we actually met due to a circumstance very similar to this. One of our mutual friends decided to have a meeting in her home to try to get some people together to enjoy some conversation, people who were different from one another. And in that case, we intentionally got together to have some conversations around questions we all carry about race and things like that. And so in that evening, it was probably, I think, 5 couples. We were all there and we had great conversation. We ended up doing that a couple times, 2 or 3 times. And it was a great blessing. And I learned so much from that. But as fate has it, sometimes you just connect with certain people. So the Margeims and the Johnsons kind of connected through that. And we've become good friends. And I appreciate y'all so much. And I consider Kev one of my good buddies. You know, it's like, you know, you're a buddy when you're a speed dial buddy. You know what I'm saying? Like that is the thing. When your name pops up high on the list like that,
Right.
that is the deal. And Kev has been a big encouragement to me personally. So how I'd like to start is, you know, I kind of know the story, but I'd love for, you know, you guys to tell the story of how you all met. And I'm kind of interested in what y'all were doing before and how you got together and, you know, all that stuff. And, you know, a lot of people don't know the story, but I only have one condition. All right. I only have one condition. You cannot leave out the Jerry curl. Okay.
It's coming back. I'm getting it back.
Huh?
I'm bringing it back.
You got to be sure and tell about it. I mean, that'll date you, Kev.
Look at my face, Dirk.
Yeah. All right, y'all go
So
ahead.
first of all, we met in college.
You want the true story, right, Dirk?
Yes, I want the true story.
Then
Not the entertainment story.
we was in college together. She needed a ride home.
Yeah.
I was charging back then, I think gas was like 75, 80 cents a gallon. I had a 28-gallon tank in my 76 Dodge Monaco Broham Centennial Edition. And so I was short on the gas.
Hey, Ingrid, don't worry. There are going to be people watching this that understand exactly what he's talking about and understand exactly why it's important to mention it. You know, Broham was the thing.
I charged a minimum of $5 back then. That was the going rate for a 90-mile trip. So we can see how the economy then.
So what you're saying is you kind of invented Uber before it was even a thing, right?
Oh yeah. That's what I'm trying to tell you, man. I got, you know what I'm saying? I ain't go there on Uber, Lyft, Uber, whatever. But Greyhound, have, you know, Continental. That was $76, big body, 360 engine, a Hemi. You know, so that was a good running car, highway car. And it was so good I had two of them. Who you know got 2 cars in undergraduate college, Dirk?
Hey, only a hustler, brother.
All in America. You're right, Dirk. That what you said? All in America. What you say?
So you end up giving people rides from school back and forth.
Right. Yeah.
You end up
Side hustle. That was a side hustle for me.
Rides from Grambling to Alexandria
90 miles.
on the weekends.
all right.
So we didn't know each other at school. We were both from Alexandria, but we didn't know each other. But an upperclassman, she told me she knew someone who went home on the weekends. And I said, oh, good. She said, he only charges $5. And I said, well, great. I have $5. Instead of doing my laundry at school, I can do my laundry at my mama's house. If I can get home, I can get groceries out of my mama's refrigerator and bring that back to school. And so she says, well, this guy, I know him, but he's loud and loony. And I don't care how loud and loony he is. I just need to get home. So he comes outside of the dorm, and I just hear someone screaming my name on Friday. Ingrid, Ingrid, Ingrid. Like, oh, maybe that's the guy that I'm riding with. And so when I get outside, there are 2 other people that are riding home with him for the weekend. He makes all 4 of us, including him, the 3 riders and the Uber driver, all sit in the front seat. And the front seat has got plastic on it and towels on top of the plastic. There's a big back seat because he told you what kind of vehicle it is. There's a large back seat, but no one could sit in the back seat, he said. We all had to sit in the front seat, and you had to wear a hat from the hat collection he kept on his back window sill. So we're all in the front seat with hats like this, Dirk. Everybody's got on a hat, and we're squeezed up like this, riding from an hour and a half to 2 hours from Grambling to Alexandria.
That was 90-minute ride. We'll never, unless we stopped along the way for refreshments or gas, more gas, or anything like that, you know.
So that's how we met. So we get to my house and my mom's house, and he's dropping me off, and he tells my mom, I'm gonna marry your daughter and be your sister-in-law, your son-in-law. I'm gonna marry your daughter and be your son-in-law. And I'm like, Mom, I don't know this guy. I just needed a ride. He said $5. He lied, he loony. I don't know him. I just needed a ride. And so that's how we met.
Fast forward 1990,
No, further.
2000. So
Fast forward 17 years.
Wow.
17 years later, well, mind you, in between the 17 years, I'm living, in law school, living in Baton Rouge and all that. My mama's calling, telling me, I saw Kevin. He says he's still gonna marry you and be my son-in-law. And I'm like, Mama, I don't see him. I don't talk to him. I just needed a ride during school until I got a card. And that's how I knew him. But fast forward 17 years later, I came home one weekend during the week, and saw him and actually had a phone conversation. He talked to me on the phone all the way back to Baton Rouge. And that's how we got started.
Ingrid, y'all left out a part about how he was sporting all that Jerry curl back in that time. You left that out.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's picture documentation to show that he had a long,
I'm getting it back, Dirk. It's coming back, man.
long, juicy.
History will repeat itself.
Juicy meaning that he had sprayed some stuff in it
Activated.
that would drip all over his shirt and all that.
Activated. Snapback.
That was the Jerry curl.
Carefree. Well, it was a good call, and it allowed me to go back and forth to bring sweets to college. So I made she go to class. She was in school, I was at school. So it was kind of a difference,
Yeah.
She fast forwarded, but I was still in Grambling for another decade.
Well, and that explains how we didn't know each other before we met at college, because
I was already there.
he's 4 years older than me. So although we both went to Peabody for high school too, he'd already graduated from Peabody when I got
Long gone.
Yeah.
And then I seeing people come to college after me and leave before me. So I said, "Oh man, something ain't right. I'm the old man around here." And so I had to self-check. I had to check myself, and
We're too busy giving rides.
Right. A lot of stuff was going on, and
He was majoring in marching band.
yeah, I was majoring in band. You can't major in marching band, and so
That's not a degree.
after Comrade Hudson died, and that was 91. That was it. So 4 years straight in the band. So now I'm finna focus on graduating. So I did 4 years, in the band, and then I focused on school after the band.
And that's when we met. So we met at the time when he was in school and not in the band.
Yeah, exactly. But, if we bring it all the way forward, that's what's interesting to me is that both of you are very passionate people. And the way I use the word passion is, I think passion means the stuff that we care deeply about. And over the years, both of you have developed some things that you really care deeply about. And I know for Kevin, it's education and specifically related to the band and those things. And I think, Ingrid, how would you describe the things that you care deeply about? I think I know what it is, but I'm interested to hear how you would explain that.
I care very deeply about things that stem from my upbringing of being someone who grew up without having a lot. So usually the things that I'm passionate about are things that involve helping to bring about change, things that involve helping to break generational cycles, things that involve uplifting and encouraging people to go after their dreams. If I find out that, hey, you've got a desire to do blank, I'm going to try to find out how can I help you to do that? How can I help you when it seems like it can't be done? How can I help you to make that happen? That's what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, I would agree. And it seems to me in the few years that we've known you all that you're both very community focused. And Kevin, how did you get involved in education? Because I know you spent a lot of time and then.
Well, I started school back in 1975 at Lincoln Road Elementary, J.B. LaForgue, really, J.B. LaForgue. And I used to walk there from my grandma's house. And it just seemed like going to J.B. LaForgue and then walking back and forth. Both of my grandmothers was cooks in the school system. So, man, then my mother was a teacher's aide. So, in other words, she was a teacher, but not a teacher, in other words, for as like certified and, on the class, on the echelon in education, how we, put those titles on people, but it's still to serve and to help kids in education. So we had that. So I would see how she was work hard, they work hard, but the pay wasn't really changing too much, but it was a constant thing. And when I went to college, like I said, I was just so focused on band. I figured that would be music, but I didn't have a counselor. I had no one to advise me and saying, hey man, you can't major in band. They was just saying, allow me to do, because you're grown. They allow you want to take swimming, basket weaving, and aerobics. You can, because you're grown. And so my parents, I was the first one to go to college and complete it, rather. And so it was just divine to me. And then it was meant for me to be in education, because to me, that's the key to everything. I mean, so when I got into that band thing and said, hey, no, I can't play piano. I'm cramping up in my hands. My embouchure is not right. And this and that, my eyes bad. I can't see this. I can't do that. So the drums was a natural gift. And I took that for granted for a long time. So it was just a natural gift that I had. And so I played drums as a young person in church. Then I played, with the larger group. I got in band. And so it was just a natural thing. I had already spent 4 years in education for saying music. So I got up to like harmony 2, piano 2, theory 2. So I had like an associate's level of understanding of certification. And I said, I didn't want that. I wanted a full degree. And they said, well, you can go into education, some other branch, since you got these educational music classes and that kind of stuff. So I said, okay, elementary ed, let me be this and that and this. And so it just felt natural. And by me being in band, a sense of family and community, with that, people from all over, get together, and that just stayed with me. That stayed with me, and as well as military, that stayed with me. So it was natural for me to go into the National Guard and the reserves, because I had already had that type of training from band camp. It was just that type of discipline in Grambling or at Peabody or in our community, where band is a force in the community. So band does all of that. So it's attached to school. And so that was just a natural thing for me to go into education, and I loved it. And so, I'm out of retirement. I'm back in the system now, and I'm seeing even more of a need for the same stuff that I was going through. So I don't want any kid to go through what I went through, to be misadvised and spend 10 years just spinning around in circles. But it's by God's grace that I finished and made it and put my head on straight, the swivel thing. But yeah, that's how I got in education, and I'm here. And it's like I'm the Lone Ranger, man. There's not many men, Black men, in education. So unless they're gonna be a coach or something, or the custodian, the janitor, or the custodian, or the SO officer maybe, and band director or the coach. Other than that, it's all women. And so I felt even more passionate to be an influence or some type of model for young boys that I didn't have. So I think back on my male figures, they were coaches and band directors. And I mean, I had, not to high school, but in the elementary, it was all women. And to me, that's not a positive model to set in front of some of these some boys and kids, girls too. I mean, so they need to see both. And so I felt, empowered that way. So that's how I got an education.
I totally agree.
And then I found
that's why I think
the GED.
He's saying something.
What you say, Dirk?
I totally agree with you, and that's why I have so much respect for what you're doing, and especially that you care so deeply about it, to be an example and to be a leader and
right.
be involved. And for the folks that don't know, Kevin is now at Pineville Elementary, and he's working and teaching there, and is a mentor for the young kids there. And I think it is very important for them to see examples.
Right. Dirk, the other thing that got me back passionate in education, for about 3 years, I worked in a state prison as an educator.
All right.
And the shocking thing that really just made me know where I need to be. I ran into a kid that I taught in the 4th grade previously. And then he ran up to me. He was 18 now, in jail doing 10 years for armed robbery. He wound up coming up to me and said, "Hey, Mr. Johnson, remember me? I was in your class. I was in your band. I was in your group." And I looked at him like, wow. And that really made me feel like, in a way, I almost felt responsible for this young boy, young man's position he was in. But I made lemonade out of that. Believe it or not, if a kid is special ed and regular ed, before they go to jail, when they get in the state of Louisiana, they can get back in special ed as an adult in that prison system. And so I was able to get him his GED while he was in jail. And so that's kind of that stuck with me. And I got a lot of them, they GED guys, men, boys. I met about at least four boys that I had already previously taught through that system. and they got their GED. So now I'm back. So when I see these little knuckleheads acting bad in the 4th grade, 5th grade, I'm like, man, he headed straight to prison. In my mind, I'm trying to do everything, you know, hey boy, you know, whatever, I'm shaking them or whatever I got to do. And fortunately, the parents, they're all right with, you know, me. And the kids are too. It's not a, you know, type thing. It's just, it's a respect thing too. You got to show them tough and you got to show them love too, passion. So that's why I'm at now, and I prevent that pipeline and put the pipeline with the drums and music to band. They don't have to go to Grambling or Southern. They can go anywhere and play music, as music don't bring home, you know, a decent living, you know. So that's I'm gonna die doing that at this point. So I'm full in.
Well, what's so interesting to me is, you guys probably know, it's a big part of my current musings, you know, how we manifest our own giftedness, how we discover it, how we lean into it, how we can develop that, and try to have impact and influence in the world through that. And it's become important to me because I think I really only discovered my best gifts in the last few years. And even after I discovered some of those, I went through this phase where I had to give myself permission to lean into my own gifts. And it took me a little while to realize that. So one of the things that I've been seeing here lately is that I think the power in our giftedness comes in the sort of the nexus, the intersection of maybe some of our top 3 gifts. And if we can find the 2 or 3 things that we're really, really good at, and then when they combine together and map onto something that we care deeply about, then that can really make a difference. And so it's interesting because I see that in your life, Kevin, where, and not even to be funny, but one of your gifts is to be loud and loony, right?
Yes.
It's almost like you do a character. It's a character that the young, you know, and again, I started in middle school. I started with the bigger kids. So you know, it's different. In elementary, you got to be Mr. Rogers, you know, type thing. And you know, go through that role. But at the same time, Sergeant Order has to be out there too. So, I mean.
Well, that's the thing is I can see where you are, that is a good application, as well as, you know, one of the things I've learned over time, and I'm not going to preach, I promise, but what I've seen is so many people think that musicians are just about fun. You know, they're just entertainers and they just want to have fun. But in my experience, and I stand by this, I will stand on this forever. Musicians are some of the most disciplined people you will ever meet in your life, because to become, especially high-level musicians, because to become proficient at any instrument requires an enormous amount of work and discipline. The difference,
you got to play lead. Yeah.
Difference is not in the morning. That's the difference. That's why people think we're lazy, but we're not lazy. We just work at a different time than all the other people. That's all it is.
So that's why if you're a musician, it's your thing. You got to produce, but then after that, that's your work. So you relax. You're not on nobody. That's like somebody working graveyard shift.
Right.
They not on time limit. They go to work 12 o'clock at night, or you know what I'm saying. So it's like a different thing. They have to adjust to the schedule of the whole world, really, the bank closed and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, we got our thing, and if we can channel that, right? If it's channeled, it's gonna be positive. But you know, that's what my help me come in at. So I'm just thankful to have people in my life that understand me.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Question, Ingrid, and then I'm going to ask the same thing of Kevin towards Ingrid. Okay, how would you describe Kevin's high-level gifts? What do you think those gifts are?
I think Kevin's gifting high level would be he's very compassionate. He's very committed, and he's loud and loony. But and I always mention the loud and loony part, like when you asked us earlier about how we met and all of that, because that's still who he is.
Right.
That's one of the things that attracted me to him, and that keeps me excited in our relationship is he's loud because he's passionate. He's loud about those things that he cares about. He's loud in bringing people together, in loving people, in serving. He's a great servant. He's a doer. He believes in doing it. He wants to do it with his hands. He wants to make sure everyone is okay. And that's a part of his loud and looniness that attracts people to him. So it's like a magnet.
Right.
And instead, some people would think that loudness would run people off, but actually it attracts people because they recognize his heart. They recognize the love that comes from him. They recognize the joyful spirit that he has.
Absolutely. I think it's one of the big lessons I've learned in the last few years is the only way to successfully navigate the world is to just be yourself.
Yeah, be yourself.
That's what's attractive, when you can be authentic. And yes, there are going to be some people that don't like loud people, and that's okay. And you don't have to worry about it because they're not going to come around.
Sent back to education. I got a student. I mean, if they do like this because coach, you too loud, the music too loud. They have exceptionalities. So I make sure when they come around or it's PE time, I'm a little low, but they let me know right here. And so I recognized it for some. And then some of those kids, you can't yell and scream at them and think they're gonna get in place. So it's a tap to all of it, but naturally I'm out the door, I'm loud because again, my movement now is limited. I'm slowing down. Seem like the older I'm getting, the louder I'm getting. Because I can't move like I want to move. So
and I'll just say, Sweets, bring it.
I can't move like I used to move, Dirk. I'm getting older now. I got a young wife though. So I got it's like a dog with bark, no bite. You see what I'm saying? That type of thing.
Yeah. And people figure out quickly about Kevin. They figured out quickly that he's loud, but he's not gonna bite you. He's not gonna hurt you. He's not gonna hurt you at all. It's all love.
That's right. That's right. All right, Kevin. So how would you describe Ingrid's high-level gifts?
Gifts from God, because only she can do what she do. No one else can do that. And so, you know, that's how I would describe it. Divine from God.
I totally agree. Kind of where I see your gifts, Ingrid, are in, I think you have a unique view for community. I think you're a connector. I think that's a gift. I think we share that in common. We operate very differently with that gift, but I think you have a unique ability to connect to other people, and then also to connect people to other people and to causes. And it's been interesting for me to watch how you navigate and how you use that. And I've learned a lot from that. I also think one of
when I met her, I didn't know that these gifts and this existed. You see, I thought she was just a little girl from the Sonia quarters. You understand me? Off of Terragana, you know, Eagle Bite Club. You know what I'm saying? So, in 11 years, I'm still learning the gifts she had. So my job is to facilitate with it. But, you know, again, I'm old. So, you know, old people ain't gonna resist the change a little bit. But I mean, again, all bark, no bite. She organized the community in a way, things that she's passionate about, leadership skills. I didn't know she was that passionate about leading, so I had to learn that. So I say it's simply divine. It's so many gifts. I just can't name all of them. And I ain't just saying it because she right here, but you know, it's a unique thing, and it seems like the older she getting, you see what I'm saying? I got a young wife, but she getting, you know what I'm saying, a little older.
And the older I'm getting what?
The more passionate. In other words, like me, I'm getting loud. The older she getting, the more passionate she becoming. In other words, it's focusing now. I'm seeing where it's going.
Right.
It's purposeful. It's for a purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's really.
I think that's a gifting I've had my whole life, even in situations that may have been uncomfortable. I can look back and see where I still operated in connecting, that I still operated in leading, even when some situations other people may have suppressed those things. I can look back and see where I've been in situations I didn't suppress being a leader, that I just, without fear, stepped out and led for different causes and to bring different people together and advocate for different things. And I remember speaking about this before during one of my speaking engagements, that the older I get, the more flashbacks I have of situations, even from way back toddler, where I can recognize that I did that because of this gifting that God put in me. I did this because of this. I was teaching this about the Bible without even knowing that I was displaying what the Bible says. So, you know, that's what maybe that's what Sweets is talking about. As the older I get, you know, the more I'm recognizing that.
And iron sharpen iron, Dirk.
Right.
So we gotta stay together. So that brought my awareness closer to the word and closer to being, you know, we grew up in church, but again, I was in college a long time, but I was in college. I'm at church, but I was in church or at church. You see what I'm saying? It's just we're going through the motions, in other words. And church became like something to do, a social, you know, and it's a script. So, but again, when situations happen, we have to call on God. So you can't call on something you don't know about. And so if you don't know about it, you better study. So that's the sharpen as a result, you know, of her leadership in that regard. So I'm saying to bring me closer to in my walk or whatever, in my knowledge of God and you know what we've been raised in church, that some kind of way I've been in church all these years and didn't even know that. So this discovery it gets better and better every day. So, you know, and so those are all good things, man, qualities.
Yeah.
That
I'm totally with
we
you.
are experiencing.
And I think that, well, not I think, I know that for me, having been raised in the church, and we may be switching the subject a little bit, but we're going to talk about church anyway.
Yeah.
For me, having been raised as a child in church, once I went to college, it took my relationship with God to a whole different level, which made me even more comfortable in the gifting of what God had put in me, because it was about survival. You know, when I went to college, it was my parents didn't even take me to college. I hitchhiked a ride to college.
That's why I came in.
And I'm talking about from day one, moving in the dorm. Nobody took me. I caught a ride with someone else. But what I recognized I had to do then was I had to just trust that God was with me and he was going to guide me wherever I needed to go. Because there was no one to say, you go to this building and register for classes, you go to this building to get your meal card, you go here for this, you got to wake yourself up. No one had prepared me for that. And there was no one that I could call on for that. So I had to lean and depend on God. And I had to step up, and which is why I tell everybody that everyone is a leader, because I had to lead myself. We're self-leaders. I had to lead myself in, if you want this, if you want to not go back to the circumstances that you grew up in, you're going to have to make it at college. You're going to have to come out with a degree to put yourself in a better situation than what you came from. So that leadership part of me was, you've got to lead yourself at this point.
Yeah, and that's a strong thing, and it is actually a very unique gift to be self-motivated as a young person is a very unique gift. And if you can tap into it, then it grows into all kinds of different things. When did you know you wanted to be an attorney?
I knew since the age of 8 that I wanted to be an attorney. My father and my family will tell you that I went to visit my father. He was in prison. And I sat on his lap and told him that I was going to become a lawyer to keep him out of jail. And so that was age 8. But, the way God worked things out, by the time I graduated from college, my dad had gotten his life together and all that, and now he's a minister and he has a college degree now and all of that. But from age 8, so I never wavered on that. That's what I said at 8, they say, and that was my path. I kept the same major. I didn't know how to get to it, but I tell people all the times it was through reading books that I learned the path. I created everything you want to know is in a book somewhere. And I used to, they say Google, but Google is just pulling up articles, which is a book. Right. So, I say that I learned how to apply for college through reading books. I learned even of college through reading books. I'd go to the same library that's on the corner of Washington Street downtown, and I'd catch the city bus there. This is as a young child, my mama will tell you, this is upper elementary, middle school. I'm catching the city bus, going to the library, checking out a big stack of books, and sitting in the corner reading books. And so I learned through reading books the pathway to get to where I wanted to be, the pathway to get to college, and then what testing I was going to need. And then once I got to college, what was the next step after that? Because you got to go to law school after that. And then even, how do you get into law school? All of that I read in the book. How do you get to law school? And after that, what do you want to do? What are the career opportunities that are available for you to go in? I learned all of that through reading books. All of it.
It's a powerful.
So that's your question. Age 8.
Yeah. I hung out in the libraries too. I was, but the real reader is right here. We should probably, the world probably needs to hear Lenita's voice, just so everyone knows she's living out her gift right now, which is, just being part of her way of being part of the conversation is soaking it all in. But
right,
yes.
Right. Listen.
Yes. And
So,
that's and it's the wonderful thing, what you're bringing out, Dirk, the wonderful thing is that in your spouse, you have to recognize what their gifting is and respect their gifting and just thank God for how it all comes together for his glory.
That's it.
Yeah.
We used to get in so many situations, like little church meetings and all that kind of stuff, with small groups and stuff. And Lenita would just sit quietly like she's doing now. And then, sometimes I'd take up more of the oxygen in the room and people would be like, well, let's hear from Lanita. And sometimes they would ask a question, and if I knew she was uncomfortable with that kind of question, I would try to answer. I had a dear sweet lady one time, dear sweet lady, kind of a blue-haired lady, and she asked Lanita a question, and then I started answering. She's like, I think Lanita can answer that question. And I'm like, okay. What she didn't know is I was trying to protect Lanita from all of that uncomfortableness. But she was fine. I was probably jumping in too much, but Lanita was an avid reader. So tell us about how books influenced you. And I'm curious about what kind of books you were attracted to, because I wonder if there's a connection there between you and Ingrid.
Well, I was pretty much attracted to books with spines, like any books. I always loved reading. And in fact, I would get in trouble as a child for always having my nose in a book. Like I needed to be doing something or working or getting something accomplished. And all I wanted to do was read. But read lots of different kinds of books. I love stories about people. I like biographies. I like fiction. Ain't nothing wrong with fiction. But yes, I'm a huge fan of books and reading. I think it's very important. When we had our kids, we took them to the library all the time. Firm believer in trying to develop a love of reading in the kids too. And yeah, so I think that speaks a lot of you and your, like Dirk said, your determination, your self-motivation, that maybe you didn't have anyone in your life to come in and be a mentor like you are to so many, to say, here's what you need to do to go to college. Here's what it's going to take to get into law school, but you figured it out. It's like the information's out there. You went out and found it. And I just think that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I mostly listen to books and podcasts and stuff now, but
no, Dirk. No, Dirk.
I'm with you on that one.
No, Dirk.
I'm about to get a subscription. I'm about to get the audio subscription. I'm about to pay monthly for my audio book.
I pay every month. I've listened.
Audio books are not real reading. That's not reading.
Right.
That's listening.
We want information. We don't need at this point in our life.
Listen,
to be worried about nothing else. We just need the information.
Ingrid, I'm always clear with people. I'll usually say, "Oh, I read that book," and then I'll put in parentheses, "I listened to it."
Yeah, it's not the same thing. It's not, and there's a difference between, and you can come here to my house and see. There's a difference between hardback books and paperback books.
Oh yeah.
Let me tell you what the difference is. Okay, but this is the difference. And Lanita knows this. She's a reader. The smell of the book. There's a smell of a hardback book when you open it that just takes you to a whole nother place. And you can't get that from listening to a book, Dirk. You can't get the feel of the fabric of the pages and all that from listening to the book, Dirk.
We're going to fast forward on the book thing. Technology. Tree, don't make no more books. Y'all tearing up trees, the rainforest, the ozone layer. We need it digital.
And look, Kevin will tell you, I buy books every week.
We need it digital.
I will buy a book before, like most women buy clothes and shoes and all of that. I want the book. Right, Lanita?
I even like a Kindle.
We're gonna need some more bookshelves. We're gonna need some more bookshelves.
In my hands. But
yes,
Dirk, like I'm fine with him doing audiobooks because he's gonna experience a lot more books that way. If he had to sit down and
I can't keep still.
Time to read it, he wouldn't get through near as many books as listening while he's doing something else. I'm not an auditory person.
Right. That's the learning.
Yeah.
That's what the kids say. Boring. It's boring. Okay. So if you got a little fourth grade telling you boring, and in the fourth grade they tell you that. Come on, you got to do something else. All right, let me put it on, put the tape on. Well, then, you know, no, you don't want them not to be able to read, but at the same time, it's about information,
Right.
And processing that information.
Right.
You know, so, you know,
come on, man. Well, you know,
anyway, let's fast forward, Dirk. Let's fast forward.
Yeah, that's right. We the book now Lanita gets is, you know, Lanita loves like anything that's a true life story. So we'll watch these shows,
Oh, yeah.
crime shows and all that kind of stuff, and they'll talk about, or sometimes we'll watch a movie that's based on a true story and it'll say there was a book about it. As soon as the movie's over, she's on Amazon buying that book.
Okay. I can see that. I can see that part there. Because the Hollywood version is not going to be like the book. So I can see that there. But at the same time, the book audio don't be like the written book. So I'm going to hear it. I'm going to be visualizing it and all that in my mind. That's the type of learner I am, Dirk.
Yeah. No, me too. You know, what's interesting is, and I want to use this pivot to a little bit different topic, okay? One of the things I discovered about myself over the last couple of years, I'm actually still mildly uncomfortable with the label. I don't know why, but I am. But I've discovered that one of my gifts is, what if you put one word label on it, would be a storyteller. And I've been trying to learn to sharpen that saw. But like you said, Ingrid, once you get some clarity about your gifts, then you have these flashbacks. You look back in your life and you realize how that gift was manifesting itself all the way through. And
yes,
as a very young child, I was attracted to stories. And when I would go to the library, I remember the library at Northside Elementary School in Gillette, Wyoming. And I would go in there. So I was there at fourth grade, and the librarian, I have this vivid memory of her showing me the biography section. And that was like the only section I went to, and I would read all these biographies. And one of the first books I remember reading from that section in that library was a book called Up From Slavery by Booker T. Washington. And
yeah.
that book had such a tremendous influence on me. And over the years, it's only recently that I've looked back. It was through some of the research I was doing around the possibility of telling some stories for the Louisiana History Museum that that brought Booker T. Washington back into my focus, and I started to remember that. And I realized how much influence that book had on me. In fourth grade in Wyoming, so let me be careful here. This has nothing to do with my parents. This had everything to do with where we lived and the culture of where we were. But I don't think I really ever physically saw in my space a Black individual until I was probably in high school. And my sister had a very good friend who was Black, and she would come to the house, and it was actually all very, very normal, you know. So I didn't grow up with any kind of racial prejudice around me, but it was mainly because we just didn't have a lot of Black souls around us. But that book influenced me because it introduced me to the realities of what happened through slavery and all of those things, and that stuck with me. And I think it was, you know, when you hear somebody's story, that creates empathy. So I had empathy for Booker T. Washington, and that's carried over into my life to every Black person that I've ever met. And it was a book, I think, that started, that gave me the gift of empathy for other people. And it's a powerful thing. It's why I believe in stories. We have to keep that alive for people. And so, you know, one of the things we're trying to do with our month of intention in February, which is Black History Month, is just have honest and open conversations about race in America as it exists today. And, you know, what I wonder is for each of you, if you could articulate maybe an experience that you've had. You know, what I'm really curious about is maybe the first time in your life where you felt actual prejudice because of the color of your skin, where you know, like, what's the story of how you experienced that? I'm convinced that you have experienced
Go
it.
first, Sonya.
He's ready.
All right, go.
The year was must have been 19 when Ronald Reagan got shot.
Oh, you asking the wrong guy.
Early 80s.
Anyways, I was in the 5th grade. I was in the 5th grade. And that's in Alexandria right here. They start sending us, you know, the term busing or integration and all of that kind of stuff in the South, in this region. And so I had to go across town to elementary school that was predominantly white. So when I got there, you know, it was a shock to me, but it was a new building, like, so that was cool. The facility clean, brand new, you know, carpet, you know what I'm saying? Well, carpet up in here, you know what I'm saying? Got carpet at the school, man, you know, in the class. But we'll get shocked, it'll shock you, you know what I'm saying? Carpet shock. So I guess that's what science. At any rate, fast forward.
That's your word for the day, fast forward.
Christmas time came. So, okay, I'm in the 5th grade, you know, this is Louisiana, and we coloring, okay? You know what I'm saying? Regular ed now, don't get me wrong. Regular ed. So I was in pull-out too, but this was the regular ed class, Christmas. And it's a mixed class, you know, black and white, you know what I'm saying? I mean, my teacher was black, Prof. Ours, Ms. Ours, she must have been 90, you know what I'm saying? That's probably why we was coloring. And anyway, man, Christmas. So they give us, you know, a little coloring sheet to color. Santa Claus, okay? Yeah, Santa Claus. So I'm looking, you know, I'm coloring, you know, I'm a little artist too. I got a little art in me. I like that flower back there in y'all backdrop right there with me. That's nice. I like that. That's beautiful. You know what I'm saying? Then it's matching. I see all that. I got a creative eye too at a young age. So I'm coloring Santa Claus the way I see Santa Claus. And guess what my little friend told me sitting next to me?
Uh-oh.
Because it wasn't no distance back there, all crammed up on top of each other.
Who was she?
I remember her name, but can I say her name? She still lives here in Alexandria, I believe.
Oh, we better not. We better not.
I'm gonna do her initial because it stuck with me. CP. She's married now, probably ain't P no more, but that's her maiden, like, you know, anyway. And she was me and her were in the same, you know, racial definition.
Yeah.
That they define race now. In other words, pigmentation of the skin, you know, just in general.
And so you're
so my pigmentation of me. I color Santa Claus my color. She looked over on my paper. Santa Claus is not black. Okay? This is 1980, whatever, when Reagan got shot. Because then when he got shot, this whole different thing. But they were watching on TV, everybody crying. I'm trying to figure out what they crying for. He ain't dead. You know what I'm saying? He just wounded. But they crying anyway. So that was my first real thing about color that tripped me out because we grew up around in a Willow Creek apartment over there, and it had black and white. We played together. I played baseball, t-ball, and in none of that I felt racial, you black or this, that. You know what I'm saying? It was like, so that shocked me and that just stuck with me. And the thing about it is that topic came up, I think, on Fox. But one of the news anchors was like, Santa Claus is white. Whatever the lady name was, the anchor. Anyway, so that was mine. That was by probably 1986.
You graduated.
I was 16. Hold up. Yeah, hold up. I got social promoted. From that. But yeah, that was when the girl told me, hey, Santa Claus, white. And that would trip me out. That didn't even register me. Even though I see on TV, hello, boys and girls, I see you, Kevin, and he called me general names, so I'm thinking he's talking about me. But he was white on the little Joe Allen show back in the day. I see you, Kevin, and that kind of stuff. But I colored in black for I don't know why. That was just. But we'll see our Sanders in Targets, where it wasn't Target, can be Bull Call. What's the other little stores? But all that have the Santa where you could take the picture with Santa, that kind of stuff. But it just didn't register. But when she told me Santa was white, that just stuck with me forever. And I'm 50 now.
He tells the story often.
Because it came up, that's it. I'm through with Santa. The more I talk about it, the more it cut me. Because he
see that.
Santa, yeah.
All right, Ingrid, do you have an experience?
Honestly, when you find out you was black. Yeah, I'm paused on Santa because we can talk about Santa some more.
This is a Christmas show. So, here's my background about learning racial differences, I guess. I was bused too. So I didn't go to all of my 12 years of school with just blacks. I started out going with just blacks and then they started busing.
Immigration.
And so middle school, I went with, sixth grade. We had sixth grade centers. That's when the busing really started. Sixth grade centers, seventh, eighth grade. So my school, AJH, which is now called AMMS, Alexandria Middle Magnet School, had whites and blacks. And so I had friends who were white. I had friends that were black. Well, mind you, for high school, I know that I'm going to be in high school. Okay, that's where my dad and all of his family had went. And so I'm going to continue that legacy. And Peabody at that time was a true magnet school that you had to apply to. You had to have a certain grade point average. You couldn't have any discipline problems. There were special programming there. And it was considered to be the top school, different from when my dad went there, because when my dad went there, it was all black. But when I go there, it's a magnet. So I applied to get into the school, and I get into the school, and junior high, I'm excited the day that I get my acceptance letter. Okay, I'm really, really, really excited. And I realized that none of my white friends have applied to go to this school, but I'm in honors classes with them. Okay, and Peabody's supposed to be this academic school, so why aren't they trying to go to this school? And so it's explained to me that it's because of the historical blackness of the school that whites are not trying to apply to get in there, even though they have all these special programs and it's supposed to be for the best of the best in Rapides Parish. And at that time, you could live anywhere in the parish and apply to get in the school. So the school was only made up of those students who were supposed to be, as they called it, the cream of the crop. But yet whites were not applying to get in there. And so once I get to Peabody and I see that it is overwhelmingly majority black, then you learn from not only when you learn the history of the school, but when you learn just what's going on in the community, and that none of my white friends here with me, I realized that it's strictly because of the historical blackness of the school that these white students and their families are choosing not to send their kids to this school. And what they instilled in us at Peabody was, you are different, okay? We were taught that. We were taught the majority. I had teachers who were black and white, but the majority of my teachers were black. And they taught us, you are different. You are, using those same words, I can say they said the cream of the crop. You are destined to make it somewhere. You are different than kids who go to other schools. And know that we're going to prepare you for recognizing that you're different. And different meant different in your skin color, which is going to cause you, because then we were educated on Black history and those kinds of things. You learn more about that because it's a predominantly Black environment. They didn't talk about that in my school that had multi races in it. But at Peabody, you learned what the struggle had been for education. You learned of things that had happened to your ancestors. You would even be exposed to meeting people. Some of your professors would be people, your teachers would be people who participated in the civil rights movement and those kinds of things. So the exposure for me to that there's a distinction in your Blackness came in high school. Now, keep in mind, when I was in elementary, Sonia Quarters and all of that, you didn't even mix with, there were rare occasions where you even mixed with other races. Your community was all Black. The only time you saw someone of another race would be when you went to, we had a mercantile store. We had the convenience store that still sits at the corner of Vance and Overton that was owned by whites. And so those were the only whites that you were exposed to. But as far as who your parents associated with, those were never whites. My parents didn't have white friends or anything like that. And so you're in, well, just like it is now, you're in a segregated part of Alexandria where you're only exposed to Black. So switch that to middle school, I'm exposed to whites, but that doesn't transfer to when I go to high school. High school, I'm back in a majority Black environment, okay? I graduated with, we had less than 10 whites who went to Peabody, but we're learning that all of these great programs, which is program that they have now, carpentry and all of that, auto mechanics, are all skills that you can use after high school. So why wouldn't the white students want to come and take advantage of that? And so, but as I said, you learn from your teachers and all of that, all of the history, and you learn of your uniqueness. You learn of that you're smart, that we're going to prepare you for, you're going to leave from here one day and you will be in a world where you will not be just majority Black. And so I'd say that, and I recognize from then, from high school on to going to a historically Black college, going to Grambling, that they prepare you mentally. They tell you there's a difference in your skin color and the skin color of others, and that there are going to be situations that you will encounter because of that. And you learn the history of what others have already encountered before you. So I took that, and we were talking about this the other day. So I took that to when I go to law school, and Southern University is a historically Black school, but the law school is probably 50-50, 50% white, 50% Black. And so back in an environment again where there's both races, okay? And so I'm thinking, and I'm gonna fast forward the story some, I'm thinking that what I now have a bachelor's degree. Remember, I've been told in high school already that I'm different, that I'm smart, that I'm set apart. And then I go on and get a bachelor's degree, which is something that most Blacks don't have. And now I'm in law school. And so, and I have professors who are Black and white. And so I'm thinking that this, what sets me apart, is going to make my experience in the world different than Blacks who are not educated. You follow where I'm going with this? So I'm gonna take you all the way, just to make the story short. I'm gonna take you all the way to, I'm graduated from college, I'm graduated from law school, and I get my first position as an attorney. And I can say that from day one, first position as an attorney, I knew that your education, your experience, your great writing skills, your great oratorical skills, none of those things make these people in this room where you're the only Black forget that you are Black. So it was very, 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 very alarming to me in that I had been mentally prepared for, you may be in situations where, because of all of this stuff, this education, all that, where you may be the only Black in some circumstances. But you can never prepare someone for, even though I've done all of those things, which should give me a seat at the table, that I will be actually welcome to the table.
Yeah.
So that was a whole lot that I said, but that's the main point I'd like for to make sure that I'm conveying, in that I definitely was faced with knowing that your race is going to be something that's recognized and that overshadows everything else that is within you.
Right, that's what I was thinking. It's not just a thing. It's like the front, like the biggest thing. It's like you have a degree,
Yeah.
you have a degree. It's like, but the biggest thing that other people see is, oh, well, you're Black, so that, like, somehow that just,
Yeah.
That's the counsel. That's the counsel.
Yeah, and so it was like, you know, you can think that you've done the right thing by going and getting an education and making sure that you work, even now, that you work harder than everyone else, that you're prepared to do your job. But I have been in many situations where you're not welcomed at the table. And the only difference between you and everyone else at the table is your race. So someone else can have less education, less experience, not be as great in their oratorical skills, not be as committed and passionate and dedicated to making sure that their clients getting the best, put in the hours, but yet the only difference in you is that your race.
Yeah, it's
I can give you example after example of having been in rooms, and the questions are like this, Dirk. The questions, Lanita, they'll say, well, how'd you get this position?
right.
And so, and my thought is, well, you know, if I got the position, the number one qualifications that I have to have a license from the Supreme Court. So with that alone, that you think would take away the question of how did you get here? Because apparently I have the qualifications on paper, but that's not enough. So the question still comes, how did you, how are you here? Or even in some situations, who invited you? You know, so my profession is a predominantly white male dominated field. You know, statistic after statistic will show that. And the majority of attorneys are from generations of attorneys. So I understand that it's a rarity. I understand that it's something that's not the majority, but that still does not excuse anyone else feeling that you are unworthy of being at the table.
Would you say that those experiences heavily influence the work you try to do in the community? Because I see a lot of what you try to do as empowering young people, especially in the Black community, towards excellence, and to help them see, not to buy into that sort of cultural worldview, to not to think less of themselves because there's a
Right.
culture that wants to think less of them. I see the work that you do as saying, see who you are, own who you are, walk in your giftedness, and walk right out into it and let it, and whatever happens, let it happen.
Yep, that's it. That sums it up. That sums it up. That sums it up.
Well,
You can't control how someone else may feel about you. You can't control that someone else may feel you're unworthy. You can't control that someone else may not want you to have certain opportunities. But what you can believe and count on is that God is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. If you continuously walk in his way, guided by him, and do those things to prepare yourself for opportunities, God will open doors. You know, because I haven't had a career where I will say that others of races have all been against me. I wouldn't dare say that.
right.
I can say that I have had other races that have opened doors for me, that have given me opportunities, that have even given me opportunities when those who looked like me didn't. But what I can stand on, looking back at my experience, and say that the majority of the time, that has not been the case. But God is always present. He's always working a plan. And if you stay focused on whatever it is that your dream is, whatever vision he has given you, he's going to make sure that you have the tools to execute that. And this is the wonderful thing about God too. This is how you grow closer and closer to him and know that he gets the glory, because he always works it out to where there's no other way you can explain it except God did it.
Right.
God made sure that he used a vessel to open up whatever door it was for you, whether they be Black, white, Hispanic, no matter what they may be. You know, he works it out to where you can't help but give him the glory. And that's the wonderful thing about the God that we serve, in that he just amazes you day after day after day. And for me, you know, I can look back every day. I'm living my dream. Who can say that at age 8 they knew what they wanted to do, and everything fell into place for that to happen better than I could have even scripted it? Okay, because I didn't get to the part where I went to school in Mexico too, in Saltillo. I went to school at the Universidad de Cojilla de Mexico to work on my Spanish fluency, because in 6th grade, once I started going to the mixed school, I enrolled in Spanish. And I took Spanish from 6th grade all the way through high school. And once I got to college, I read in a book, Lanita, that if you're bilingual, they'll pay you more money in the United States if you can speak Spanish. And so when the opportunity came for me to go and live with a family in Mexico, here I am, this girl who straight off of Turgan and Wise, who's never even been out of the state. I've just been to Grambling and back home riding with him. But who would think that I would get the opportunity to go and live with a family there and be immersed in the culture? And you know, which is why I have so much compassion now when they say people are trying to get over the border and all of that. But to work on my fluency and then come back to Grambling and work as a translator while I was in college with the students who came from Mexico. So those are things that no one could have scripted for a little girl from the Sonia quarters. You know, so trusting and believing that God has been with me and is still with me is how I don't back down from opportunities to be the only one. You'll hear from some Blacks will tell you that they don't like being in those situations, that they make sure that they're not in those uncomfortable situations. But I don't back down from those opportunities, because from within me is the light of God. And so my prayer is always that they see God and not just my skin color, but know that if God has said it can happen, walk in it, walk in it, walk in it. And you know, and even now being back home, Dark, you know, and the things that I do in the community, I am intentional about making sure that I'm not exclusive. I'm not just involved with Blacks. I am intentionally making sure that I love all of God's people, that I encourage others to love all of God's people, that I encourage others to not be afraid to speak up, even if you're the only one in the room, not even if you're just the only one in the room, but speak up still, even if you're the only one on the right side of an issue. Don't be afraid to speak up. And that goes beyond color. So those are the kind of things that I definitely try to be contagious in, try to be contagious and encourage other people to do the same thing. I'm gonna stop talking.
Well, I think you are, and it's man, I appreciate it. You've landed us on a great place, and I know you guys have some other things to do, but you know what I've realized is somewhere along the line I caught hold of this thing, that it's very clear in Scripture that we're all created in the image of God.
Yes.
And so we have a brotherhood in our humanity. It's one of the reasons I like Brother Cornel West, because he calls everybody brother and sister. And what I see that as is a recognition of our own humanity, and that
yes,
we're all created by God, and that thing alone makes us worthy of his love. And that what we are supposed to do is learn to love and respect each other as we're both created by God. And but you know, there's a different kind of brotherhood when we acknowledge God and acknowledge Christ as Savior. Then that is a different kind of brotherhood that we share. But one of the things I've been learning, and you said it beautifully, Ingrid, we have to, two things have to happen. One, I have to be able to demonstrate to you that I see you as equally created by God as me, and that there's nothing in you that is inferior to me, because the same God made you that made me. I have to find ways to demonstrate to you that that's what I believe. But the other thing that's necessary, and this is what you tapped into, is we have to demonstrate that to other people. Other people, our children need to see us recognizing that everyone is created in the image of God. And we don't do that by what we say. We do that by what we do. How we interact with our neighbors, how we, you know, it's the little things of whether or not, you know, we've heard the stories, don't have time to get into it, but when a lady drives down the street and there's a young Black man walking on the street and she locks her doors, that is a demonstration of what we think about those people. And I'm not saying we shouldn't, you know, work towards
stereotype
and all those things, but you know, it's the little things that we do to manifest, to demonstrate to other people that we respect and love their humanity, in that they're created by God. So I appreciate what you say, that you take action to do that.
Ingrid and I have to tag off because we've got another Zoom, so we're going to let you and Kevin finish this.
All right. Thank
that
you,
was
guys.
great.
I think we're
I'm gonna have to that's Juanita. I'm gonna have to log off of the Zoom because I'm hosting a 5 o'clock Zoom.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking we're trying to go. All right. Hey, thank you guys. Love you all. This was a lot of fun. See you together soon. All right. See y'all.
All right, bye.